this way, by the way, better now. I like it that way.
And we're here.
Hello.
Welcome to Wednesday night generational change.
I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and
I'm sorry, I did not have time to straighten my hair, so it's going to be a little on the frizzy side.
I'm all pretty tonight.
You are. You look very pretty. I do appreciate you shaving.
Shaved.
Because I don't like to sit next to you when you're
washed, masked.
Oh, I know, and then rolled. Oh yeah. So I know the process. I've seen it up close and personal.
So then I think it's so let me think again. Shaved, washed, masked, rolled. That's it. Those are the 4 pillars.
Honestly, he is face. You're so much more high maintenance than me. It's so crazy. You know what? Here's the thing about that.
Hi, Arlene.
We as really pedestrians do not know everything that goes on behind the scenes. We do not know. We do not understand. And for the most part, we should be happy with that because it's really gross what goes on. But Ash is a good guy and he is fighting for the right things. And he comes from a country with universal health care, and that's important to him. So he didn't let us down. He's within a system that he's within and trying to get what he has to get done. And it's not to be pinned on any one person, especially someone who's on our team.
If there is one lesson to be taken away from what happened in California, it's this. Stop relying on politicians to do what you expect them to do. If you have a problem with what just happened in Sacramento, then hundreds of thousands of people need to rally and get to the state capitol. And we and many others will help fundraise for it.
Yeah.
You want to solve this problem, you can make their job very difficult on them because, as FDR said, make me do it. That's how it got done.
And may I just say, speaking of fundraisers, we are organizing, we as in the Broward County Democratic Progressive Caucus.
We can take a little credit for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it came through us, but in any event, it's being organized. But we are hosting none other than Nina Turner, who is in South Florida and will be at our fundraiser. We're doing a meet and greet on Sunday. It's in Wilton Manors. All the details. Actually, you know what? I have
probably
this
put that
handy.
Up there right now.
Wait a second. I'm going to show you what I can do. Oh, yes. Here it is. I'm going to, move us out. Just take us out of the whole thing.
Oh.
No. Just hit that.
This?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, guys, this is sorry, guys. Wrong location. Forget you saw that.
Boy, you're messing up all over the place.
I'm so sorry, guys. I had to change it, but we are having a fundraiser for Nina, but it's going to be
a different location.
Yes, it's in Wilton Manors. It's from 1 to 3 on Sunday, and it's going to be at Georgie Alibi Monkey Bar Club. I don't know. It's in Wilton Manors. It's right on Wilton Drive.
It's in a very fabulous part of
the
town.
Updated flyer will be on all of our social media platforms, so you'll be able to see it. And yes, and it is. We are asking for a $50 donation to come to this.
Mm-hmm.
This is a fundraiser. However, I would like to say that our organization, will be donating $200, and so that will allow for 2 other people who want to come with. So we can talk about that if there's people out there, right? You and me.
Right. Okay.
And then, that's my thing. I mean, look, I'm a regular donor personally. Like, I'm on the monthly support list anyway. But yeah, I thought what we'll do is we'll donate $200 to this. So we have an opening for 2 people. So if you are one of our local people that would like to attend, reach out. And if you can't afford, so we're donating 2 tickets. That's my.
Needless to say, Nina is the best of us.
Oh, yeah.
We are all about electing non-corporate representatives into government. I think we're learning by the day that as much as one can argue which party is worse, which party's better, I think we can all agree that as long as we are electing non-corporate representatives into positions of government, that is what is going to allow us to move the needle in the direction that it needs to go in. And so, speaking of which, our first guest is here. He is running for Congress in Jen's favorite state, which is North Carolina, the 7th district. We are going to learn a lot about Mark Judson. North Carolina.
I have grievances about Asheville's congressional representation. I say that Asheville's congressional representation is not representative of the majority of people in my Asheville.
Yeah, this is
I'm just saying.
There's this thing called gerrymandering. You may have heard of it.
I know how it works.
So we've got to fix that problem because Mr. Cawthorn should not be the representative of the liberal bastion of the South.
You people do not understand this district that way, or just basically what's happening is it was gerrymandered so that the real people of Asheville basically get screwed.
Arlene, we agree 100%. And now, without further ado,
Arlene,
please welcome for the first time, and definitely not the last time, Mark Judson to Generational Change.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hear you really well.
Beautiful, beautiful.
How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well, despite the fact that I'm dwelling here in North Carolina.
It's a little cold these days.
It is. It's not the temperature. It's the fascism, really, that's getting me down, you know.
Don't be so nitpicky. We can't all, beggars can't be choosers.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's a great place to start, Mark, because obviously North Carolina is a very interesting state. It's fairly evenly split, but we know that there is a very big influx of people coming from all fairly liberal parts of the country. And it's not just Asheville. You have Charlotte, you have Raleigh, but it's a state that really is a state of flux right now. And unfortunately, what we've learned about the GOP is that while there are segments of the party that are willing to evolve, there's also segments of the party, especially in the South, that are unwilling to evolve. They would rather just suppress, divide, conquer, you name it. So give us a firsthand update of what it's like dealing with this, red-blue war that is going on.
Well, what's your district like? I guess that's a start. Yeah, like where's your district?
That's a great starting point because right now I'll tell you, I don't have a district.
Oh,
and
you're one of those.
Why? So picture central North Carolina, right in the middle is the big blue dot is the triangle. And if you make like kind of a rectangle going directly south towards the coast to the city of Wilmington along the I-40 corridor, that tract of land, about 70 miles, is known as New District 3, Old District 7.
Okay.
And in 2020, I ran in Old District 7. And I want to circle back to 2020.
Now? So is it 3 now? You're running in 3?
No. So Old District 7 is now mostly New District 3, but decades ago they set the number of House seats. It's fixed, right? So as populations migrate, right? So in 2020 we had 13 House districts. Now we have 14 because of population shift. So we have a Democratic governor who, by the way, does an amazing job of working with a very, very red legislature to get anything done. But the legislature gets to draw the maps. And so they created this new District 4. And I've got 2 homes here. One is in Wilmington, deep in the heart of Old District 7, New District 3. And then one just north of New District 4, Old District 7, which is in the triangle. So when they created the new maps, District 4 opened up, which are the 4 counties directly below the triangle area or the Raleigh-Wake County. And so I did some analysis and did some fit testing. And I said, you know what? I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for District 4. Even though I have a base in District 7, I think really, quite frankly, the way they've gerrymandered it, District 4, I can probably do better in the general if I make it that far. So I said goodbye to District 7, said hello to District 4, and then the courts got involved and District 4 may go away. We don't know. And so let me just lead up to where we got to today, which is where the Supreme Court of the state is taking up this case. So in 2018, the maps were so poorly or so badly gerrymandered that you're right, it's a split state. For the U.S. House seats statewide, North Carolina was 50% red, 49% blue, and 1% other. So with 13 seats, you'd expect a 7-6 split. So badly gerrymandered that with 50% of the vote, Republicans took 10 of 13 districts.
Oh, wow.
That's how bad it was. So before 2020, the Democrats filed to sue, right? So delay hearing, get too close to the election. They say, you know what? We don't have time, so we're just going to run with it. Great. Fast forward to 2022. Now the census comes out, right? Republicans calling their guys again to mess up the maps. And so now these maps that they have are even worse than the last maps. But what the court case will now, what the Supreme Court will hear is, do we want to use the new maps with 14 districts that's very, very poorly gerrymandered? Or do we want to go back to the old maps with 13 districts that are really, really badly gerrymandered, not quite as bad? So probably what's going to happen is I can't imagine any court saying, all right, we're going to give up a congressional seat. We're just going to go back to 13. So I think what it is, they're either going to roll with these maps or they're going to tell them to redraw the maps. Let's talk about option one for a minute here. Roll with the maps. So now we've got really badly gerrymandered. The reason it went to the Supreme Court and it lost in the lower court had 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, and nobody was arguing that the maps are wrong. The reason that they ruled in favor of the Republicans is that there is nothing in the North Carolina Constitution specifically stating they can't cheat that way.
So it's legitimate cheating.
Legitimate cheating. Yeah, they stole it fair and square. So, it's like, so our Attorney General, very, very said, look, it's, a pursuit of happiness issue of nothing else, right? So there is a basis for throwing these things out. Now, the Supreme Court, I want to say, has, I think 5, it's 3 Dems and 2 Republicans, I believe. Don't quote me. I'm not an attorney. I'm an accountant. But anyway, so there's a chance it can get thrown out. But probably what will happen is that they'll say, no, these are fair. So now we have to redraw them. Okay. So, and then everybody's got to be happy. We'll probably have to hear it in court again. So the primary was supposed to be on March 7th or March 8th.
Oh, wow.
They've already pushed it to May 17th now.
Wow.
Okay. So that's Erica too. Erica,
Yep.
Friend of the show, Erica Smith.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now,
wow.
So if we get into this, now we're talking maybe a June, July primary, and then the general's right behind that. So
they do this by design.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, make no mistake. The Republican Party, in my humble opinion, since 1995, as a party, actively decided to overthrow the government, and this is where we are. And they started off the smartest place they could start off, setting up the Supreme Court, because that's the linchpin for everything. And so this is just, this is where we are at this piece of it now. But North Carolina is no longer a functioning democracy. It wasn't even with the 2018 maps. And that determination was made by some international board. And I forgive me, I can't recall the name of it. It's a Google thing.
Is there a state that is a functioning democracy?
I think probably most blue states are. Most blue states are.
Maybe.
Well, the Democrats, particularly in New York, have decided that they want to fight fire with fire. And one can argue that it's not going to solve the problem. But New York apparently is going to now have a 23-3 seat advantage in Congress in the state. It was initially 18-8, and now they're adding. So it's a net 10 gain, because they're losing. One side's losing 5, the other side's gaining 5. The one state that seems to have it right is Michigan. Michigan has an organization called Ungerrymandered that is a completely independent governing body. They drew I think, I want to say 14 congressional districts, I believe. And they basically drew them fairly evenly. I think it's a Democratic advantage of 8-6 or something like that.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because, depending on the year, Michigan is a swing state. But obviously, population-wise, it leans more, it leans slightly blue. So that would make sense based on the population. Problem is, the governing bodies of any given state, more times than not, their only concern is about protecting their own. And that's the big problem we have here is, how are we going to get past that? And, one of the things that we do encourage on our podcast is, we do need electoral reform, and we do think that ranked choice voting is something that could really help, because a lot of independent voters just don't want to be involved. They're not interested in the electoral process because they don't want to be a part of either party.
Go figure.
Yeah, but I would like to think that if we had a ballot initiative like the one we're trying to have here in Florida, that could help mitigate a lot of that problem. How do you see that ultimately unfolding? Because again, as we talked about right from jump, it doesn't make any sense that somebody like Madison Cawthorn would represent Asheville. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. You couldn't be two diametrically opposed people in terms of what he espouses versus what that, not a major city, but a minor city is about. I mean, they are as a liberal bastion as you're going to find, and he is as conservative Looney Tune as it's going to get. So, something's got to be done here.
Something's got to be done. And look, it all goes back to the fact that candidates don't win elections. Money does. 90% of the time, whoever spends the most money wins. And Madison Cawthorn had a lot of money behind him. You want to hear kind of a scary story? This will take about 2-3 minutes, but you want to hear a scary story about my primary in 2020? So here's what happened. There were 3 of us, and none of us were experienced. We're all off the shelf guys. So when there's 3 people in a primary, 3 Democrats, they pull a card basically to determine ballot order. Now, we understand that if you're at the top of the ballot where there's no name recognition, you have somewhat of an advantage. So between the 3 of us, 2 of us went out and we hustled. We were out there campaigning all the time, got in front of people. There's another guy, Chris Ward, who ultimately won, who did nothing. And I'm not telling him, I'm not saying anything I haven't said to his face, right? And I'm not bad-mouthing him. It's simply a fact. If you look at his website, he talks about what a great guy Trump was, but he was a billionaire and he was a genius, but he just did some things he didn't like. So now this is a Democratic primary in a reasonably blue area. So anyways, he didn't do anything. He put up a website. We all did the same TV interview where we were all asked the same questions. And Chris's went so bad that twice during a 7-minute interview, he said to the interviewer, "This isn't going very well, is it?" And he wasn't wrong. And he wasn't wrong. But this is it. This is all anybody knows about him. He didn't come out once. He didn't meet anybody, didn't do anything. And on primary night, he won 48.5% of the vote because he was at the top name on the ballot. And everybody went out to vote for Bernie or whoever, and they just checked the top name. And so the thing is, if with 10 minutes of research, you would have understood that he knew nothing about the issues. He was, in fact, a Republican who didn't like Trump. So it's never good for a politician to put it off on the voters. But I would say collectively, we as voters have to do a better job of educating ourselves to avoid stuff like this. So I could see people going out to vote. Hey, Madison Cawthorn, he's on the ballot. Hey, cool name. Sounds like a soap opera guy, probably a Dem because of his, bang, and just check the box. And that may very well be what happened. And so we as voters have to do a better job.
I think that's a very, very solid point. And he's a handsome guy. He served our country. He is in a wheelchair.
Did not serve our country, sir.
He didn't.
No. So here's what happened. He applied to the U.S. Military Academy. It was either West Point or Annapolis. Either way, they denied him. While that process was going out, he went down to spring break with a buddy of his. They got in an auto accident, single car accident on the freeway, 1:00 a.m. I don't know that liquor was involved, but I'd be shocked if it wasn't. And then he said that was the reason he wasn't accepted to the academy, when in fact he had already been denied. And so that's what we get the stolen valor claim that you see all over Twitter.
Yeah, well, a lot of people unfortunately, a lot of people like to do that if they can get away with it. And I think that again speaks to one of the bigger problems, which of course is corporate special interest money in our political arena is the issue of our time. The issue is that ultimately, and this is a thing about Democratic voters that they need to get better about. There's so much of the liberal voter that is driven by emotion, and they're willing to just go along with what the corporate narrative is, you got to vote for this guy because this person's the one who's going to beat that person, instead of recognizing that you only get, dinos on, you don't get a lot of rhinos. You get a lot of dinos. One thing you could say about the Republican base, they don't get hoodwinked very often. They kind of know if their people are with them or they're.
Can I push back on that?
Sure.
I'm going to say they all get hoodwinked all the time, but they're all okay with it. They have an authoritarian mindset where if their perceived leaders say, line up and do ABC, they'll line up and do ABC without ever questioning it. It's the authoritarian mindset that drives the Republican. And I respect your opinion. Please, I'm not trying to
No, they are. That is most of what they even do. Not that they have official policies anymore, but most of what they do is authoritarian.
It is
purely. When you specifically look at Trump at this point, it's not a political sect; it's a cult.
It is a cult.
It's a cult.
It's not an insult. That's right. Yes.
No, it's a cult. They're following a leader. They're not working with a platform or principles or policies. They're literally just following a leader. And if they're giving money, then yeah, that's a cult. So
yeah. So they line up, and I saw it because I joined the military very young. I enlisted when I was 17,
Sure.
and I may not have been so successful had I not been so young and malleable. And I wasn't very well educated. I was a 10th grade dropout with a GED at that time. And of course, over the years, I read voraciously and put myself through school, blah, blah, blah. And I got educated, or as I call it, I shed my veil of ignorance, right? Which isn't an insult to anybody. We're all born that way. And right, we hopefully shed the veil of ignorance. And so I could juxtapose and see, like, I was in the Army. I joined in 83. So Reagan was in. And I was a little, goose-stepping Nazi, pardon the phrase, right? But it was just authoritarian. I'm following strength. This is patriotism. This is what it is. And so I get where a lot of them, particularly the younger ones, are, because I was that way myself. And the only difference is education, age, and wisdom. And so I see the Republican Party like there's 0.01% of them that are just leading them down the path of slaughter. And these guys don't care. They know they're doing wrong. They know they're Nazis. They know but they're getting fabulously rich doing it, and everybody else is being strung along.
Well, they say that a lot of people that support the GOP that don't support any type of initiatives that they would actually want.
Yes,
it's the fact that they are temporarily embarrassed millionaires is how.
That's a great phrase.
and I think that's again because of the way our society has been collapsing over the past several years. It's so easy for authoritarians like Trump to rise through the ranks when, if things were going well, people would look at him like the grifter that he is. But as it stands right now, people are desperate for leadership, and that is something where, again, the unifying message that we really try to espouse is if we elect non-corporate representatives into all levels of government, that is what is going to change this thing. Because if you're there to get rich, then you're the wrong person for the job. If you're there to serve the public good, then you're there for the right reason. And that, more than anything else, I would assume is why you are running. And again, no corporate special interest money is going into your coffers, Mr. Judson. No. And you served our country proudly, and we thank you for that. Where can people find you? How can they get involved in your campaign if they would like to volunteer?
My website is markjudsonforcongress.org. It's a simple Google search away. And yeah, I guess that's I got to say. .org. Yes, sir.
What would you say? Let me ask you though, because we didn't get into really what are your key issues? What are the things that
top three?
Yeah, that really what I say was your why? What's your mission?
So top three, get rid of the propaganda. It's got right-wing propaganda has to go away. So I don't think hate propaganda should be protected speech under the First Amendment. I think that we need to have both laws that could charge people criminally if they go over the line. But I think that we need to have self-policing journalistic organizations that can fine or otherwise regulate. And there should be a governing body of PhD professors that are basically fact checkers, independent, part of the DOJ. And, if you go over the line and you're just simply putting out propaganda, which is defined as, an outright lie or facts so twisted that they become a lie in order to influence somebody's political opinion, that should be a crime. So we have to get rid of the propaganda. If we did nothing else, our country would be 95% fixed in 10 years. 2, got to get the money out of elections. We should have publicly funded elections. You get through the primary on your own. And if you're a House candidate, you get a budget of, say, 50,000, 100,000, whatever, for the general. Because, hey, one of the things that Congress does is manage the largest budget on the planet. So shouldn't we know if maybe a candidate can manage a budget or not? That might be something good to know, right? And then we'd have to make some rules about what people can say press-wise before the general, blah, blah, blah. But basically to put the information back in the voters' hands. I'd also like to make a tax credit If you vote, you get $1,000 tax credit. If you don't, you pay $1,000. Let's get everybody to the polls. Hopefully we'll do the right thing. So incentivize that way. So we got propaganda, we got election reform, education. There's no reason why we can't have the best K through 12 and free college. And I can show you mathematically how it is not an expense. It is a source of future revenue. We would make money doing it. And finally, healthcare, right? We have to have healthcare that is not for profit. We should use a cost recovery method, which I know I'm throwing an accounting term at you. But basically, if we did it just this simply, where a hospital has what they can charge based on their costs, and then every month they bill the Treasury for everything that they serve, Treasury pays them, they collect it through the tax system, rich people pay a little bit more, poor people pay a little bit less. That would be the most efficient and cost-effective healthcare in the world. And it would be brilliant, but we can't do that because of the scare word socialism, which takes us back to the propaganda problem.
Right. Yeah.
There's no question. But you know what? You got a lot of people, especially Gen Zers, who are embracing communism. So you know what's going to end up happening? They're going to end up moving the Overton window to the left, to the point where looking at socialism.
So one of the primary tenets of both socialism and capitalism is that the state owns all property. They own all the houses, all the cars, nobody's calling for that, or nobody who's being taken seriously is calling for that.
No.
So it's a scare word, just like it was back in FDR's day, you know. And so I think Gen Z, when they throw out communism, they don't really understand it. They just want to say, I'm a little bit more to the left than everybody else, I think is what that means.
Yeah.
And again, I think when you have your political awakening and you realize just how messed up the system is, it's almost like, well, I just want to flip the table over. And the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of tweaks that could be made that could literally change the system overnight, that can make it a lot better than it already is.
But the problem, may I tell you what the problem is, sir? I don't want to take up your time. If you want to kick me off, because I can talk. Right? But here's the problem. Any law that we try to pass, right, even if it's reasonable, even if it's constitutional, that will help the democratic process, is going to get kicked out of the Supreme Court. They will say at the district court level, hey, find against us so we can just move up the ladder to a place where we have everybody bought. Now, we can't replace the court. We can't even expand the court until the Senate represents demographically the people. And it doesn't. It's owned by, they bought two traders and then the rest of it. So as long as the Senate and the Supreme Court are both corrupt, President Biden has only one option. And that was the option that Lincoln used. And that is to use the military, because he does not control the DOJ. He does control the military. And anything he tries to do legally will get shot down the Supreme Court. Can't fix the Supreme Court until you can fix the Senate. Can't fix the Senate until you can control the gerrymandering and election theft at the state level. And the president can't do that. So literally, by 2029, I believe President Biden will either mobilize the military, or he'll shut off the lights on democracy and we'll never have a fair and free election again. I think that's where we are because of where we've let it grow to. So
you're right. And we've definitely let it grow way out of control. And that's why more citizens like yourself and many others really do need to step up. It's not a question of wanting to, it's a question of having to. Mark Judson, candidate for U.S. Congress in North Carolina's supposedly 4th district. Hopefully
473, whichever it turns out.
Didn't work it out. But we really appreciate you coming on this evening. Best of luck, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you for having me on. Bye.
Anytime, sir. And thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. So I think that you're getting a perspective on, where I would say Mr. Judson's probably a little bit more on the moderate side of politics.
But that's more representative of North Carolina.
I would say that depending on where in North Carolina, yes.
I would south of the, tri-city area. So it's pretty just middle of the state.
But again, I think the language component is true, because I think a lot of people do get scared off by certain words and certain phrases. And again, people wanting to be involved in the political process, they look at what's going on right now and they think, where is this going? It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
In fact, it's only getting worse. And the one thing that we talked about that President Biden could do is he does have executive authority, because legislatively speaking, Congress is broken. And
actually, there's a lot of things he could do. There's a laundry list of things he could do and have done. Huge list. And again, every one of those things that he fails to do is a failure on his part.
It is.
Period.
It is.
The student debt thing, the cannabis thing, the expunging the records of all the federal nonviolent drug offenders that have been releasing all the 2,700 federal nonviolent drug offenders that are incarcerated. There's a myriad of things that Joe could be doing.
There's that word again.
And yes. And in fact, some of them he actually campaigned on. He campaigned during his campaign about decriminalizing cannabis. He actually campaigned on that. So these aren't out of, left field kind of things.
Well, I think it's one of the things that Mark said that I thought was very interesting is the fact that, and it's not a surprise that Representative Cawthorn actually lied about his service.
Or he just allowed it to be implied.
Yeah, which is
that, know what
bad.
I mean? Right.
That's,
like he might not have ever said it. I don't know, but he might have allowed that to be implied based on, appearances.
Yeah.
Or what,
Oh, I know.
Because you probably weren't the only person who assumed that.
No, and
Right.
again, I did assume that, and that, of
Right.
course, is wrong on my part. We are waiting on our guest, Joe Sanberg. I'm going to find out in a minute where he is. Do we want to do our little banned books?
Well, we can, but it kind of ties into one of the stories in the news.
Mm.
So I was kind of going to, end with that. That's like a coming soon thing. But we can start, we can do news.
All right, so we're going to do that. And we're putting Sarah Baumberger in a
I don't think that's a real name, and I don't understand.
Not.
But meanwhile, yet she's supporting our channel. So she's one of the people that she's mocking for being here. So there's somebody on there saying, so it keeps coming in and saying, update, Jimmy Dore has this many viewers, you have this many viewers. And I just feel like I'm saying, yeah, so we have 14 people that are actually becoming, more educated and learning about people and things. And there are 17,000 people that are just watching somebody go off on a rant and doing nothing productive. To me, that's more sad than anything. But it's weird that somebody is giving us the time of day watching, commenting, which by the way is great for the channel, and is just being such a nasty,
Yeah, unfortunately,
just
Jimmy plays rage politics, and that works.
It doesn't matter. We're not going to go into any of that. I don't care. It's just funny that somebody keeps coming on and
I
giving
think
us this update.
I think our show is small but mighty, as Jim
We're
likes to
small
say.
but mighty, and that's
the
not the purpose of our show. We didn't do this to have an entertaining show and have an income and have us be like personalities. We did this to take our platform and use it to provide interesting information to people in the format of predominantly long form interviews as a podcast. The fact that we do it live, that was sort of just, a fun little thing that we did, figuring it might be fun for some people. So we're not set up we're a podcast. So our goal is not necessarily live stream. So when somebody's sitting there comparing us, it's just we're in a totally different. No, that wasn't Declan.
Could be somebody else.
Declan's not mean about us. He's not.
No, we get a few trolls every once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, we get trolls that say that we're racist and,
oh yeah,
I'm
racist. That's
okay. Well, look, again,
we're just trying to build a coalition amongst different people where we can have agreements and try to get some things done, try to educate people and transform politics into service. That's what we're trying to do. We're doing the best we can. We're using our platform in a way that we feel is productive and positive. So when people are nasty, it's just what's the point? All I'm trying to do is help people. I had this discussion today.
With who?
With one of the gentlemen who is installing the shower walls in the bathroom, one of the porcelain specialists. And it's very frustrating because I feel like all we're trying to do is help people. That's all we're trying to do is help people. We took a platform, transformed it into what we have, and trying to educate people and help people and promote what we think is, goodwill. And yet people are so mean about it. And it's so bizarre to me how people are so agitated by someone who's genuinely trying to help. It's weird. That just seems very misplaced to me. I mean, I just think it's very weird for somebody to hate on someone who has no agenda other than trying to help people.
Well,
Like,
again,
it's
in a
just
time
so weird
when
to me.
things
Like, I don't
are-
understand.
Well,
Like,
again,
why?
in a time when we are dealing with a lot of nihilism, which is a huge part of the problem, as we know. You know, there is that issue of, well, what are we supposed to do now? How are we supposed to improve our current situation? And we know what some of those solutions are. One of them, of course, is a living wage. And and the gentleman who is about to join us is a very interesting individual who happens to be an entrepreneur and activist, somebody who has done very well for himself, but also recognizes that what's the saying? What lifts all boats? How does that saying go again?
I don't know you're saying, but
a rising tide lifts all boats. Yes, that's it.
Somebody who apparently understands that we're not supposed to be kicking down. I do have to say before Joe comes on something interesting that happened today. So the gentleman who we're working with to put together our Sunday function apparently also works with Joe, but I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that at all. And he was asking me questions while we were talking about Sunday's event about our show tonight and what we're going to be talking about. And I really thought for a minute like that, well, does Nina have a concern? Is there something like, I thought it had something to do with Nina and I could not figure out why he was asking me about our conversation. And then I realized that for some reason, this is a link that our friend works in both circles.
Well, we are going to get Joe, but only audio. So hope that's okay. But for the first time, we are very pleased to welcome to our podcast, Joe Sanberg. Welcome to Generational Change.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure,
Absolutely. Sir. But see, now how do we know it's really you?
Well, faith.
Okay, we'll have faith. So we've never met. I'm glad to meet you, and it's always nice when there's people that are fortunate that choose to recognize that and realize that it's important to bring everyone up with them. And that's something that we were going to talk about. I mean, really is the importance of a living wage. So, from your perspective as someone who is an entrepreneur and somebody who has money and somebody who lives, a good lifestyle, why is it so important? Why do you see it so important for everyone else to have a living wage?
Well, because we find meaning in our connection with others. I believe that we're created with the purpose of doing everything we can in our lives to heal suffering around us. And I believe in this notion that there is the necessity of the other, that we aren't whole by just ourselves. We're whole by how well those around us are doing and how fully we help those around us who are suffering. And the idea that any of us can be complete when many of us are working full time for subsistent wages is farcical. And I think it's one of the great immoralities of our society. So it's both a moral charge that everyone should earn a living wage, and it's also good economic sense, because in a consumer economy, when people have more money to spend, the entire economy does better. And this is one of the ways in which I think the current political discourse is both morally bankrupt and completely insane. We're depriving the core engine of our economy with the basic fuel that drives growth, which is money in the pockets of workers who then spend it at businesses who then need to hire more people, and you get a positive, virtuous feedback loop. So in every which way, there's a compelling case for a living wage.
Yeah, it's, just listening to you talk, it sounds like the way I'm always thinking about it, it's that we have to understand the importance of the collective. And this is something that I think about with other countries, that they just fundamentally do better than we do. They fundamentally care about the collective. When I think about like Finland, for example, I recently had an interesting story where I learned about how the level of parental leave they give up to 3 years. Like there's just this concern of the collective, and we don't have that here. And that's what we're trying to promote. And I really appreciate that you said that how you did, because I think that I don't understand how anybody thinks that they're better off with everyone else being unhealthy, less educated, hungry, and homeless. Like, how is that in any way good for everybody? Like, it's so, we're so brainwashed to think it's a pie. And that if somebody
But actually, most people don't think that we're better off that way, because the supermajority of people support a $15 federal minimum wage. And even in Florida, where not a lot of things can get 60% of the vote, the $15 minimum wage that was put before voters in November of 20 got, I believe, almost 62% of the vote. So where there's a total divorce from this understanding is among political elites and big corporate lobbyists, but actually among most Americans, there's pretty broad consensus that we do better when everyone earns a living wage.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no question that the argument for a living wage makes total economic sense, because if there's one thing that conservatives always like to harp on is this idea of, people living off the government dole. And well, a corporation like Walmart, for example, pays such a low wage that when I guess most new hires are on the job, they are given an opportunity to immediately sign up for welfare, which is incredible that that's even a thing. But we all know that we would have a much more stable economy if people weren't government dependent. I think that in itself is a complete conservative economic argument. Would you agree with that?
Well, whether it's conservative or progressive, it's just basically fair-minded. No one actually agrees with the policy that we as taxpayers should be subsidizing the stock price performance of big major corporations. But that's, in fact, exactly what's happened. You look at the multi-trillion-dollar publicly traded companies, they've become worth multiples of trillions of dollars because, in part, they pay their workers like shit, and they're able to pay their workers like shit because they pass off all of the external costs of supporting the workers' healthcare needs and food needs onto all of us, the taxpayers. So when you look at the multi-billionaires, know that it's your taxpayer dollars that have enabled those people to become multiple billionaires. And when you put this to people, most people of all political parties totally agree that there should be kind of a pay-as-you-go model where companies who are relying on shit wages for their workers and therefore relying on all of us to subsidize the supports that those workers need, those companies should be paying an enormous amount of extra taxes. And, it's one of the areas where I think we as progressives have really fallen short of a powerful alliance that we can create, which is with small businesses. As an entrepreneur, I talk with small business owners a lot, and they are getting screwed by big corporations because they're doing the right thing by their workers. They're providing health insurance and they're providing a living wage. And then they're paying taxes to subsidize their giant monopoly competitors, who then get to use those taxpayer subsidies to get away with paying crap wages to their workers. And so, one of the things that I'd really encourage us all is be a lot more proactive in embracing the mantle of being pro small business and anti-monopoly.
Yeah, we definitely, that's always something we're big proponents of. We used to do for a long time, we did Small Business Saturday, and we would always promote different small businesses. Then COVID happened and it just got increasingly difficult to be doing it. But we think that's a fundamental point of being able to nurture a collective, is having small businesses and having less centralized planning and just more. I mean, that's what we need to be supporting. And, I think it's really important.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
I also think it's important to note that, obviously we know what Bezos has done with Amazon's business model. They are a complete monopoly over the, shipping and shipping distribution industry. And so, one of the things we also talk about with small businesses, a lot of them have, online stores. It's not like you wouldn't have the opportunity. And again, I know people are like, well, what as individuals can we do? How can we make that difference? Social consciousness can go a really long way. Just, we don't need one shop small business day out of the year. We need it every day. And one of the ways that can be done is, looking at where the mom and pop stores are locally and highlighting them as best that you can. Obviously, it's difficult in certain parts of the country, but I think that that's where the whole shipping industry can take a different turn. It's just so difficult competing with a massive corporation like an Amazon, where they're not making any profit on the shipping component, which is essentially what allows them to bottom out the price and not have any competition. But there has to be something that could be done. Do you have any thoughts on, how we continue to further the momentum for small business in this country? Because I do think, obviously there's a few different ideas that we have as progressives in terms of how to get ourselves out of this bad rut that we're stuck in right now. but I would like to think that advancing small business growth could definitely be one of those ways. It's just a little tricky with the way the monopolistic setup is right now with a number of these mega corporations. But what are your thoughts on how you would fight against that?
I think we need big, bold government action on antitrust. I think that in the absence of antitrust action, both at the federal and state level, we're pushing a meteor up a hill. I totally agree that we should do everything we can in our own individual lives to support small businesses, but to really create the kind of society that I think we all would like to see, we have to have changes in the law. Our antitrust laws are totally outdated and don't accommodate for a lot of the risk factors that we need to incorporate into those laws as we should update them. Specifically, the current interpretation of antitrust law only accounts for a one-dimensional consideration, which is, does industrial concentration cause higher consumer prices? Well, of course, that's an important consideration, but that's only one of many important considerations in a democratic society. For example, we should be considering what industrial concentration has as an effect on wages. Because if people are making a lot more and prices are a little bit higher, then people have more after tax income. Second of all, we should be considering the effect on democracy. When you have companies that are the size of nation states, you create structural threats to a democratic society. And because of the industrial concentration that we've permitted to ensue in this country, we have a few dozen companies that have the power of nation states. And our politics is suffering exactly for it, because when you combine that with Citizens United, which means that $1 equals one vote instead of one person equals one vote, you have these nation state companies that dominate our politics and write the rules that advantage them, and the rest of us are screwed.
Yeah, it all comes down to getting the money out, which is that's the first thing that has to happen. Imagine a world where elected people and people in government couldn't take money like that. They couldn't take private sector money. They couldn't invest in private sector businesses. They had to be, impartial, and imagine that they couldn't run $1 million campaigns. They were allocated a certain amount of airtime and a certain amount of money if you get a certain amount of signatures, and that's it. And what if you couldn't buy Congress?
If only.
That's what we're trying to do. That's ultimately what we need to do.
Well, one of the things that we saw recently, Joe, that I'm sure you've been paying very close attention to, we're speaking with Joe Sanberg, entrepreneur and activist from California. This is a very important time for the labor movement. We were huge supporters of the Amazon workers attempting to unionize in Bessemer, Alabama. Of course, we know that they obviously went to great lengths. Let's be honest, they cheated the voting process. But we kind of saw it as not a defeat, but as a momentary, stoppage, if you will. We knew that the momentum was going to continue. And sure enough, the Starbucks workers in Buffalo were able to successfully unionize. And it seems like it's been a touchstone moment where a lot of other, not just Starbucks chapters, but a lot of companies are now recognizing that people are starting to come together and collectively bargain amongst themselves, and then to figure out a way that they could ultimately unionize. And that is something that I think will have a major impact on us being able to implement a living wage. How do you feel about that?
One of the biggest things that we can do to create a better future is to empower the union movement. And when we look back, I think one of the biggest things that has caused the exaggeration of inequality is the assault on unionization in this country. It's really not any more complicated than a power imbalance. Inequality is about a power imbalance. And for 60 years, the power of workers, which is synonymous with the ability to unionize, has come under systematic assault by our court system, which has been populated by conservative jurists that the conservative movement has filled in the courts for many, many decades. And one of the things that excites me about the present, there's a lot of stuff around us that give us cause for concern, but we are in an emerging worker moment. And you're seeing the increase of strikes. You're seeing more calls for unionization in particular companies. What though worries me, though, is that we're going to hit some bottlenecks with the laws and the court system because the courts have been so stacked against us. So, just prepare us all that we need to be ready to fight and organize triply hard, because we might not realize what we're about to come up against in the courts and how they've been stacked by conservative jurists who are anti-worker.
Yeah. I would like to also point out that for the most part, the Democrats rubber stamped a lot of those people. You know what I mean? Like,
totally. Are you kidding? You're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely stacked with conservatives, but it is not solely the fault of the Republicans. That was sort of
there are candidates under consideration for President Biden Supreme Court nomination who are anti-worker.
Yes, that is correct.
Unbelievable.
And
I mean, no, extremely believable. I shouldn't say that.
Want to give a shout out
to, as I said on Twitter the other day, a diverse-looking oligarchy is still an oligarchy.
Thank you. And that's the last bastion of what they have left, Joe, is this idea that, well, if we just fill enough quotas, we can kick the can down the road just a little bit longer. And so a lot of people have been pointing out, rightfully so, okay, if you want to put a black woman on the Supreme Court, that's fine. Does that black woman represent workers or represent corporate special interests? That's what matters to me. And I would
I would say it's great if you want to put a black woman on the Supreme Court. We need a more diverse government leadership, but we cannot be snookered by corporations into letting them use identity to advance the interests of capital.
Yeah.
I am noticing, as I'm sure you would agree, Joe, Jen, that this has been sort of like a 6-year odyssey, the whole Bernie Trump phenomenon, this great awakening for so many people politically. And I think we're entering sort of that phase now where a lot of those newcomers are becoming very hip to the game, understanding exactly how it's played, how they are essentially fooled or have been fooled before, but they're not getting fooled the way that they used to. Do you see sort of like this awakening of sorts amongst the populace where the establishment is not having the success they used to into more or less hoodwinking people into believing their brand of BS, if you will?
I want to say I agree, but I'm by nature an optimist. So I worry that I agree because, I surround myself with people who, like we all have a tendency to do, we surround ourselves with people who have similar worldviews. We'll see in the next few election cycles. But I think you're probably right, because I think ultimately people care about whether they're able to feed their families. And the harder it becomes to feed their families, the closer they pay attention to politics, and the harder they are to hoodwink into thinking that, these kind of attestations to irrelevant identity without meaningfully addressing class issues actually changes their life.
I think we would be remiss to not bring up what we believe has been a monumental move by a fellow entrepreneur who I'm sure you know pretty well, Mark Cuban. His decision to start this cost-plus drugs business, I think is an absolute good. I mean, considering all the hell that is going on related to big pharma, the price gouging that is nonstop. Again, we would obviously love to have a universal healthcare system. Single payer through Medicare for all would obviously be the most ideal. But considering where we are right now, and just considering what we saw as one example, I can't remember the name specifically of the drug, but it is a leukemia drug that right now on the private market goes for about $10,000 a month. Mark apparently is going to have on his exchange at about $50 a month.
Amazing.
I mean, that is, it's life-changing for a lot of people. If you could comment on what Mark is doing and perhaps what you feel that more wealthy entrepreneurs could potentially be doing. Dan Price of Gravity Payments comes to mind. More or less just kind of setting the standard, if you will, because relying on Capitol Hill to fix our problems seems to be a dead end, as you probably would agree. But it seems that there is the opportunity here with what Mark is doing to maybe, really disrupt the market, especially when it comes to prescription drugs. How do you see that?
Well, I applaud what Mark's doing. He's a brilliant entrepreneur, and I think this is a good that he's doing. In addition, I think the best thing that entrepreneurs can do is invest in big structural change. Like, let's not kid ourselves. We're in this place because big moneyed interests have bought our political system. And we are not going to defeat those big moneyed interests with butter knives. We have to organize our own big moneyed interests to change the political system. We have to fight fire with fire. So, in my opinion, one of the best things entrepreneurs could do would be to pour billions and billions and billions of dollars into the same tactics that the right wing has used, except use those tactics to get Medicare for all and a living wage. We're kidding ourselves if we think we're going to be able to win our political objectives without emulating the tactics that the right wing has mastered in administering power. You know, there's a great quote that MLK has that my fiance actually put into this really awesome glass encasing that is on my desk that talks about power and love. And about love without power, MLK said it's sentimental and anemic. And that is the left in our country. Is the left is about love, but doesn't engage with power. And we can't have justice without the intersection of love and power. So as much as I wish we could have a bunch of entrepreneurs build companies and then it would change everything, this country is so big that even for multi-billionaires, they're a teeny, teeny, teeny dot in the greater whole. So what we really need is political change. And as Bernie said, we need a political revolution. But I think that where we have to build on the foundation of 2016 and 2020 is understanding that that political revolution is actually going to require alliance all the way from working people to progressive people of wealth so that we can use their resources to fight fire with fire.
I agree. I thought that too. It's like they bought Congress. We just have to rebuy it, basically.
Correct.
We just need we need to rebuy it. And I totally get that because oftentimes I actually went to law school in order to lobby. My original thought was to lobby in the same way, like what you're saying. I'm like, okay, I want to go lobby for like the Innocence Project or, you know, like I'm in the lobby for the good guys because the bad guys have all these lobbyists. And so it's not inherently that lobbying is evil. It's just that it has to be used for good and not evil.
Well, let me share, if I may, a brief story about some of my experiences 6-7 years ago in California when I wanted to help California create a state version of the earned income tax credit, which is like a wage subsidy for low-income workers. It's literally cash back on your tax return if you earn below a certain level of income. And I went to the lobbyists that typically lobby for the oil and gas companies in Sacramento because I wanted to go hire the lobbyists that are the most effective. And unfortunately, those happen to be the ones in California that work for oil and gas and tobacco. And I went to them and I said, if I pay you the same rates that oil and gas companies pay you, will you go lobby for poor people? And they're like, yeah, sure. And they did. And we won and got the state to create its first new anti-poverty program in 40 years. And when I did that, I got a little bit of, criticism of like, how could you, use those lobbyists who also work for the tobacco and oil companies. And, I wish it weren't so, but, on the other hand, look back, they won and they won for poor people. So I think that was a pretty good decision.
Yeah, we always get crap from all over the place, like from every direction, left, right, what have you, for who we talk to, who we affiliate, who we platform, who we bring on our show, and how could you do this? I mean, even the nonsense in the chat now, it's like, we're trying to do is create alliances with people that have the same mission that we do ultimately and want to make the world a better place and believe in the least of these. Like, to me, either you think you have a responsibility for the least of these or you do not. And if you think that, then I can work with you and we could figure out the best way to do things that will help the most amount of people. And we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree on a lot of things. We can actually only agree on one thing, but if we can get that done, then that's worth it. So it's very frustrating that there's these constant purity litmus tests as to who you can and cannot affiliate with. And this is why we can't get anything done. And the naming and the labeling and all this stuff.
That's actually a great transition,
it's
Joe.
So ridiculous.
I'm sure you've been observant of, especially after what happened, with Bernie in this last election and what's obviously transpired under the Biden administration. There is a huge movement of nihilism on the left. It's becoming very counterproductive in a lot of ways. how do you see, mitigating that issue? Because it seems to be very, very toxic, almost to the point where, well, not even to the point of, but actual self-sabotage in many instances. What do you see, and potentially what we could do about it?
Ignore it. Truly, you got to ignore the haters and the noise and do everything you can every day in your life to create positive change.
Absolutely. I agree. I think that's a brilliant idea. That's what I try to do. It also, for me, meant getting off of social media. That was a huge thing for me. It was maintaining sanity, was to get off of that nonsense.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where you go online, we have, let's say posts of the day, but it really is amazing, how people can get mired down in these endless conversations of that will go nowhere. I mean, there is no point to them. And there's one thing I'm sure you understand very well, is that wasting time is not a good thing. And the idea that people have time to waste, especially nowadays, is amazing. And that's where I agree with you. The online leftist nihilism, and we had
and people who assume they know anything about your life, right? I mean, the problem with social media is it relegates us into these avatars that are dehumanized, about which we all make and cast these assumptions, right? And so instead of participating in that, understand social media for what it is, which is an important tool to organize and spread the message. But instead of letting your mind get captured by diving deep down a rabbit hole of Twitter, go volunteer and feed people who are experiencing homelessness, or travel around the state and provide social services to low-income people. I mean, one of the most meaningful parts of my activism has been spending a lot of time traveling throughout the state of California and being with people who are providing for their kids based on $20,000 a year of income. They don't give a shit what's on Twitter. They care about whether you're helping them feed their kids.
Yeah. We do we're very, very locally oriented, and we do most of our stuff. Most of our donations are made to local funding efforts, like community garden at the high school that we just donated to. We do act very local, because I think that's where you see the impact. That's where you actually know you're helping people. And that's something that's really important to us. But in general, we need to be building bridges, to be working on things at a bigger level. And I think that's what we're really trying to do here, ultimately.
Well, I think you're doing a pretty good job.
Well, thank you. I'm going to surprise him, but I did a little research and I found something interesting. And you might not have any knowledge of this part of, I would assume you would, but about this recent that you just acquired your first acquisition, and it's this startup in Denver. And that really interests me because I went to school there. And so I have love for that. And it just sounded really interesting. And I was hoping you could explain it, about what that is and how you're using it to track carbon footprint.
Yeah, Carbon Insight. So step back briefly. The company I co-founded is called Aspiration. And the mission of Aspiration is to provide sustainability services to businesses and to consumers, to use the private sector to try and fight the climate crisis. Fully recognizing, I want to be ultra clear about this, we cannot defeat the climate crisis only through the private sector. That is absolutely not possible. We have to have big, bold government action. But that doesn't mean that there also isn't a meaningful role for private sector actors to contribute. In fact, I would go as far as saying this: if the private sector can only be about cutting down trees, and planting trees can only be the realm of the nonprofit world, we're fucked. What we need to do is have big, bold government action and show business that a better way of making money is planting trees than cutting down trees. For centuries, people have made wealth off of exploiting the planet. And I think we need to be practical enough and say, it's not just okay, it would be good if we could show people how to make wealth by saving the planet. So Aspiration has a business that is about helping enterprises and businesses track their carbon footprint and then neutralize that carbon footprint through a combination of reducing their emissions and also utilizing nature-based offsets. And we also have a consumer business where we deliver debit cards and credit cards and everyday financial products that you have to get through life in a modern economy, but that are differentiated by having climate features embedded in them, so that every time you use your Aspiration card, we plant a tree, and we offset the carbon footprint of your purchases. And we show you how the places where you spend money on your Aspiration card treat their workers and the environment. So you can compare and contrast where you're going to buy your groceries based on which stores treat their workers and the environment the best. This recent acquisition we made of Carbon Insights is automating through more sophisticated software the ways that we can help our business clients track their carbon footprint, and then ultimately eliminate that carbon footprint through a combination of gross reduction of their emissions as well as nature-based offsets.
So you can actually track like the product. I mean, this is what I'm picturing. Like, so if I'm buying something, then I would know what that entailed to get that. You know, like I can look and say, what did this do? What was the travel? What was the, fossil fuels used to get this thing to me? So you're talking about people really being able to see the impact of what they're doing.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, no,
But can you tell me what API is? What is API? What does that stand for?
Well, API is kind of a technical jargon that simply means you have a software protocol that allows other applications to hook into your protocol.
Okay, this is techno speak is what that is. It's not something that has to do with like the environment. Like this is techno computer speak. Okay, because it just says APIs and I don't know what that is.
And by the way, I'm not an engineer, so if any of the engineers at Aspiration are listening, I've probably embarrassed myself in how I've described this, but
that's why
I did the best I could from a liberal arts standpoint.
No, you were great, but that's why I was hesitant when I asked you, because you're not mentioned in this particular article. So I really didn't know like how much of the detail, but you actually explained it in a way that I understood, which is better. So like if you were an engineer and you really explained it complicated, then it would make it harder. So yeah, we're trying to build bridges between the very, very technical smart and regular people so that they understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's one of the reasons why, we do have a very, very cordial relationship with Andrew Yang. I think it's important that we try to build this coalition as effectively and efficiently as we can. And speaking of reduction of carbon footprint, a lot of people have ideas in terms of what we can implement. We're both huge proponents of high-speed rail. I think that in terms of reducing our carbon footprint, that is one of the ways that it could be done. And of course, it would be a massive infrastructure project that this country really needs. How would you see reduction of carbon footprint from your perspective? Obviously, we can change the energy grids in a lot of places, especially out west. I mean, I've driven, recently on I-10, between LA and Palm Springs. And of course, you got endless amount of wind farms, but there's obviously a lot more that needs to be done. So how do you see the ultimate landscape as far as, reduction of the carbon footprint? Do you see it as, a major project to start like a high-speed rail, or is there anything else you would have in mind?
It is genuinely all the above. The problem is too big for any single answer. High-speed rail has an important role to play. Electrification of the grid, making renewable energy transportation of all forms, including personal transportation, more affordable is crucial. All of this has to be filtered through a lens of making sure that everyone can participate and that we don't fight the climate crisis on the backs of working people, which too often has been the case. But there's no single answer. We need an industrial remobilization that requires government coordination that we haven't yet received. But I'm cautiously optimistic that we will act before it's too late.
I think that brings our conversation to a very good final point, which is I'm sure you're very well aware of the political article that was written about almost 2 months ago, where your name was floated as one of 3 potential successors to Bernie's movement for president.
You always got to go politics.
Well,
you always got to go politics. I try to avoid it as much as possible. All right,
only one. But your name was floated along with Nina Turner and Marianne Williamson. So I'm curious as to, if you took that in stride and, ultimately, if that's even something you're thinking about, but more so, there's definitely going to be an opening, I believe. I thought it could have taken at least until 2028, but it looks like the calendar is moving up it looks like 2024 is going to be an opportunity for the progressive movement to take another shot. What do you ultimately see happening, and what have we learned, let's say, from the Bernie movement of the last two election runs, where this time we will have the opportunity to take the next step?
Well, I don't think there's any individual who's a successor to Bernie Sanders. There'll never be another Bernie Sanders, and God willing, he'll be with us for a very long time. I think we have to consider the next stage of the movement one that occurs at local levels, winning municipal and school board elections and governorships and mayoralties, as well as the presidency. But what the conservative movement has taught us over the last 60 years is there is a lot of change for the good, depending on which side you're considering, that can happen without the presidency. Think about all that the conservative movement has accomplished in the last 40 years. And in the last 40 years, Democrats have controlled the White House as often as Republicans, but Republicans have gotten a hell of a lot more done. So I'd really urge us to not think just about who the next progressive presidential candidate is going to be, but more about who are the thousands of progressive candidates that we're going to propel to victory for school boards and city councils and mayorships and governorships and state legislatures and Senate and Congress and all the rest. And getting people who are progressive on the court at every level. As far as running for office is something I'd consider. I think lots of people should consider running for office. I think one of the messed up things that exists in our current political culture is that if you express interest in running for political office, it somehow makes you like ambitious in a bad way. It makes no sense. We need good people running for political office, or we're never going to break the cycle of having political offices held by crap people. I also think that the way you can serve changes throughout the course of your life. And the way I think about how I spend my life is always through this filter of where at every given point can I have the biggest impact? And at least up until this point, the answer hasn't been running for office. That could change, but my focus right now is first and foremost on passing a ballot proposition that I'm sponsoring in California, which will be on the November of 22 ballot to raise the California minimum wage to $18. And that's going to be my electoral priority. We got to win that. If we can win that, it's going to mean a raise of over $6,200 a year for over 5 million Californians. And further, if we raise the minimum wage in California to $18, think about the spark that's going to have on other states throughout the country. After we win that, I'll assess at the end of 22 what comes next.
Where are you in that process? Like I'm assuming it's a signature collection situation and just promoting it, but where are you right now in that?
We're about to begin the signature gathering, and we'll collect the necessary signatures. It will be on the ballot, and we will have the resources necessary to make sure that we win. We'll raise and spend whatever it takes. I think that it is morally urgent that we capture this moment, which has more worker energy than at any moment in the last 40 years, to substantially move farther down the field, past the foundation of $15, and honor those who established the fight for 15, and set the flagpole way down the field towards 18, 20, and 25. And I believe if we can win in California 18, it's going to be an earthquake on the living wage debate for the rest of the country.
I think that's true. We always talk about the importance of statewide initiatives and getting those through and the chain of events that occurs. I mean, it's really the domino effect. We always also acknowledge that in Florida we'll be last. But we're happy for all the other people that seem to be moving forward.
No, you know what? With what just happened this week with CalCare, I think it's a prime example that people need to be more proactive.
Yeah.
And a ballot initiative is the most proactive way you can be involved with a cause. And the state of Florida is a great example of that. We are a very libertarian red state, but we get a lot of progressive legislation through on ballot initiatives.
Yeah.
We almost passed what your state, which is one of only 3 that has jungle primaries, we almost passed it here in Florida. And it looks like we have a really good shot at having ranked choice voting on the ballot in 22.
That would be big.
And that, to me, I think will pass. Along with legalization of cannabis with home grow. So ballot initiatives, like you said, Joe, that really is that to me is the path, I think, in a lot of ways, because it puts the power in the hands of the people, not in the elected officials. I would assume you would see that is a huge part of this evolution, politically speaking, in terms of change.
It takes it out of the partisan realm, and everybody can agree on things. It's just that when we're not fighting in our tribes, that's why.
Great.
You're right. You're right.
Joe, this has been a very enlightening conversation, to say the least. What are you working on right now? How can anybody find your work if they would like to follow you?
Or how can they help with you getting signatures, and where can people go to help with that?
Stay tuned. Follow me on Twitter at Joseph and Sanberg. And in the coming weeks, we'll be announcing how people can participate in our move for the signatures.
Okay. Yeah, guys, and I'm assuming it's only people in the state that have authority to sign, but there's a lot of people that live there. So guys, if you can help in any way to be out there in California, if you're out there, help promoting this. It's a big deal.
Well, also though, people outside of the state will be able to help us phone bank for signatures, as well as phone bank for get out the vote.
Yeah, very important.
Joe, before you go, I did have one last thing that I want to touch on. When Jen ran for Congress down here, one of the things that we really focused on was this idea of service to the community. I really think that this is an idea that can really grow big for a number of other campaigns, and potentially any, statewide campaigns. Like I said, we focused on things like community gardens. Would you see that as a type of initiative that you would be interested in promoting? This idea of you're not just running for office, but you're running to serve the community while you're running.
Absolutely. And I believe in this idea that if you want to be a leader, just start leading. You don't need to ask people's permission to serve others. And this has been a hallmark of the activism that I've led in California. I talked about the earned income tax credit work. What I also want to share is that out of the passage of the earned income tax credit in 2015, I created a public charity called Golden State Opportunity, which serves millions of people every year with free tax prep and other social services that help them get Medi-Cal and food stamps. And let me tell you how we've married that delivery of social services with activism. Every year, we serve more people and help them with what they need in their lives. And then we organize the people we help to lobby Sacramento to expand the exact policies that we're helping them access. And so there's this compounding effect where the more people we help, the more people will lobby with us to expand the exact programs that we help deliver to the people in need.
I think that's amazing. I mean, we started that very early on in our campaign. Basically, when we started running, I realized that there was a snowball's chance in hell of us winning. And if I was going to spend the next, 18 months of my life doing something, then it needed to have a bigger purpose. So I created GenCore as a service-based campaign when we ran, and then we just kept it going into this. But that was the whole point. See, so even though we lost, I spent 1.5 years doing service and building up different networks locally and trying to build bridges. And I think that what we're trying to do is encourage more campaigns to be service-based campaigns, because it also keeps the movement going. And one of the things that we notice is that people will run, they'll lose, and then they'll go away. And I think that even if it's not you next time, if you keep the people moving, then somebody else isn't starting from scratch with a snowball, right? Like they have a bigger thing that they're working with. So, I mean, that to me is a huge part of what we need to be pushing, is the type of campaigns that progressives run. They need to be in this bigger movement and service oriented. I mean, that's just what we're trying to push.
Absolutely. I don't think that anyone's ever regretted any of the following things: calling their mother, getting a good night's sleep, and serving those in need.
It's true. And it's good to hear you say that, because if and when we ever run again, then we'll be calling you when we're fundraising.
I hope you will.
And by the way, Sarah, that's how we win these things.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
With the way society is right now, you need people at the highest levels of success, like the Mark Cubans and Joe Sanbergs of the world to say,
supporting the right
yeah,
things.
supporting the cause, because a rising tide does lift all boats. You are the embodiment of
There
that.
it is.
I did say it right.
Yeah.
You are the embodiment of that, Joe. We are extremely grateful you came on this evening. We hope we can continue this conversation again at some point. Guys,
Maybe sometime I could see you. You look very cute in your pictures.
Well, that's what my mom tells me. So thank you.
I'm sure she does. And you know, we are within a few years. I'm a few years older than you, so we are of the same generation.
Gen X.
Well,
yeah.
I'd be happy to come back anytime you'd like.
Awesome. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
And
Well,
if
when
it-
you
and if
launch
it-
this bill signature collection for the bill, then we can have.
If and when we're ever in Southern California.
Oh well.
You know.
My in-laws are there. My husband's from Southern California.
So there you go. There's the familial connection. And of course, Joe, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Joe.
We look
Thank
forward
you.
to talking with you again. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Thanks. Same to you. Good night.
Bye. So needless to say,
He was
that was
lovely.
a great conversation. And again, and we are trying to get Mark Cuban on the podcast.
Oh yeah, I would love to.
This is the
Yeah, for sure.
importance of this group. And this is why we get so upset when people like to go after Andrew Yang. Yes, Andrew says silly, out of the world stuff sometimes, but that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to recognize that, especially in the tech world, and that's where this world is right now, because you need people like Joe Sanberg, Mark Cuban, and Andrew Yang to push back against the Jeff Bezoses, Elon Musk's, Mark Zuckerberg's, and especially the Bill Gateses of the world.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way. And the funny thing is that Joe is a very wealthy man and he has no money compared to some of these other guys. So understanding just how powerful they really are. And I saw somebody in the chat mention George Soros. Yeah, he's another one. He is not on our side. And anyone who thinks that he is, wake up, because he's not.
Because Sarah Michael Bloomberg elects Democrats in name only. He himself is not a Democrat. The people that he supports are corporate people. So I don't support that.
Yeah, who did Mr. Bloomberg elect? Our state party chair. That lovely.
Who's a Republican.
Thanks, Debbie.
So yeah, no. But you know what? I mean, depends on how tasty his boots are, though. Apparently I'm such a bootlicker.
Matt, it is unfortunate that Jimmy does what he does. We wish that he would use his platform to be more productive. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have a right. Yeah, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have a right to state his claims on certain causes. But the problem is Jimmy is primarily concerned with Jimmy and building his brand. He is not concerned with the cause. And I know this on good authority because I know people that know him personally. So unfortunately, his MO, as it is the MO for a lot of other people, is they're not there to help. And as Joe said on the podcast, just ignore it. Focus on what you can focus on, which are the people who are really in it for the right reasons. So if somebody like Mr. Judson is running for Congress, running a service-based campaign could have a lot of positive, even if you don't win.
That's the point.
And you build a much more loyal following by doing that, and a much more loyal support network within the community. So with that said,
I prefer this format. I prefer us down there. Yeah, I do.
Fair enough.
I just do.
So we are going to do our news and amuse.
I prefer that.
Which is important. I really want to leave. Well, Jen, where do you want to start?
I don't care. I'm very flexible. Where are you wanting to go?
Well, you are the Dolphins fan.
I am the Dolphins fan, and I don't know enough about this coach, because to be a Dolphins fan knows that we've gone through as many coaches in as many years. And so I honestly lost track somewhere after like Nick Saban, I think. Like I don't even know, because it was honestly, we had a different coach every year. So I'm kind of out of the loop. So that's why I was wanting you to be able to talk about this.
Yeah, I think that this is a very important story because Brian Flores was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins for a few years, and I thought he was really moving the team in the right direction. I follow sports is
right, which
that's what I do for a living.
Yes,
and so
not play it, mind you.
No, I work.
Talk about it.
I work in whatever. Stop ragging on me.
No, I'm just saying because you say it's what you do for a living. I'm just making sure.
I work in sports. I know these things, and so Mr. Flores. When he was fired, by Stephen Ross, who is one of the worst owners in all of sports. He is. Even I was like, this makes no sense whatsoever. Like, no sense at all. He is a good coach, and he was moving the team in the right direction. And let's be honest, it's not exactly easy to find good coaches or players that want to come to play in Miami. One thing about football, South Florida Heat is not ideal conditions for playing football. Far from it.
It's
in
harsh.
fact, the best places in the country to play football are in the mid-Atlantic regions, where it's, 40, 50 degrees at game time. That's what's ideal for football players, not 70, 80 degrees. That's not ideal at all. So you already have a hard enough problem getting people to come down here and play. But how about having somebody who can coach? Remember, when you can coach up talent, make them better than they actually are, because they are a much more cohesive, the sum of all parts together is very strong.
But in this story, we're getting off topic.
We're not getting off topic.
This is about the lawsuit.
We're not getting off topic because this guy it would be one thing if this guy wasn't doing a good job and he needed to lose his job. He was actually doing a pretty good job and he was fired. And so it really touched off this whole thing about, well, why was he fired? And now, as it turns out, he was fired because he wasn't willing to play ball with a crooked owner. A crooked owner who was trying to bribe him to lose on purpose. And you better believe that he is not taking that charge against the NFL unless he's got the goods.
So this says he's claiming that Dolphins owner Steve Ross offered to pay him to purposefully lose games in order to secure a higher pick in the NFL draft, and encouraged him to purposefully violate league tampering rules. Flores says when he refused, Ross then led a campaign to treat him with disdain and held out as someone who was non-compliant and difficult to work with. So basically, he was fired in retaliation.
It almost sounds to me like what Mr. Ross was doing was systemically making it impossible for Flores to succeed as a coach. That is unbelievable. That is why this thing is much deeper than people think.
But Ross look, I grew up here, so I've seen this transition. He does not love the Dolphins. He doesn't love his team.
This is it's money.
Exactly.
That's
he doesn't love
is.
the team. He has no interest in them doing well. He's just like, that's the thing. If he could make money and them not do well, he's just as fine with that. Like he doesn't love that team.
You're going to have one of those owners is also going to be, sorry, Joe. Yeah, I know. Listen, the Packers are the embodiment of what ownership should be because it's owned by the fans.
Yes.
And unfortunately, one of the participants in the Super Bowl, sorry Farbode, good friend of mine who was a diehard Rams fan, Stan Scumbag Kroenke, yeah, that guy, part of the Walton family that owns Walmart, he doesn't give a damn about the Rams. He'll spend money, but it's always a means to an end because for them, it's all about making money. It's not about whether you win or lose. And the Miami Dolphins, same problem. Stephen Ross, all about the money. But now it looks like he may be having some serious ethic violations that if Mr. Flores can prove, that might force the sale. That might force Ross to sell the Dolphins.
And you know what? Good. We can only be so lucky, which is part of why I've lost interest. Because seriously, when you keep having turnover like this,
how do you root for a team that you know is never going to be a contender?
I remember rooting for Bob Greasy. I saw somebody mention my 73 Dolphins. I remember. I actually started going to the games in 73. I was 2 years old and my dad had season tickets. And they used to, in the old stadium, in the Orange Bowl, before we had actual seats, they were benches with the lines painted on them. And because I was little, I could just squeeze in between my parents. So they would just buy a ticket for wherever and I would just sit with them.
Let you in.
No, I mean, well, we paid a ticket to get in, but I was able to sit in between them and not have to sit in the random seat.
It really just, and it also goes to show you how even though he never won a Super Bowl, Dan Marino really is a top 5 quarterback of all time. Because for him to be able to accomplish what he did with a franchise that never gave him a defense 1 year, not once. He took them to the Super Bowl once. He lost to Montana in his prime. I think Joe Montana is one quarterback that happens to be better, but there isn't many.
Now
and
really
he had many opportunities to be successful, but that is in spite of this ownership. And it's finally coming to a head now because one coach got pushed too far.
Good. And I would like to say kudos to you, Coach Flores.
And to my New York Football Giants,
They're one of the ones being sued.
I don't know to the extent of what you did or didn't do. I actually do believe that Joe DeBall, that got hired as our head coach, is the right coach for this moment.
That's not.
But if there was any assurances that were given to Mr. Flores about hiring him and then you didn't, that's a big problem, and that's something that will ultimately be uncovered.
I think it's interesting that it's your team and my team. And then who else was it? The Bears? It was somebody else.
The Bears.
The Bears. All right, guys. So we're going to move on. So apparently, shocking to all,
Israel is an apartheid state.
Who knew? We did.
But that's what Amnesty International
and
says.
This is
and
what,
a lot of people are really up in arms about them saying
right. And so this is how I'm going to approach this, because this particular article, I think that I pull, I'm not sure which article I pulled, but what I'm going to do instead is I want to read what the definition of apartheid is according to Amnesty International, because that's what's really at play here. People don't like the word, it offends them, but let's really look at what does that mean. So apartheid, this is according to Amnesty International, is a violation of public international law, a grave violation of internationally protected human rights, and a crime against humanity under international criminal law. The term apartheid was originally used to refer to a political system in South Africa which explicitly enforced racial segregation and the domination and oppression of one racial group by another. It has since been adopted by the international community to condemn and criminalize such systems and practices wherever they occur in the world. The crime against humanity of apartheid under the Apartheid Convention, the Rome Statute, and customary international law is committed when any inhuman or inhumane act, essentially a serious human rights violation, is perpetrated in the context of an institutionalized regime of systematic oppression and domination by one racial group over another with the intention to maintain that system. So I don't care what your personal opinion is on whether or not you agree with Israel doing what they're doing, but it is an apartheid state. If that's the definition of apartheid. You could literally place that on top of the government and policies in Israel, and it would just be perfect. Like, it matches perfectly.
And I also think that what we're looking at here is a situation where something is going to be done about the settlements. Something's going to be done.
Well, but we as a country, as the rogue nation that we are, we completely discount things like international law. We've removed ourselves from jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. So like, we are the country that is not complying with what the general consensus is of humanity.
Yeah.
It's really, you can't make this up. Like, we're putting ourselves out as sort of like this beacon of freedom and liberty, and we're fighting in all these places to free and liberate the people.
No, but it takes balls for Amnesty International to do that, because you can be in favor of Israel's right to exist and be against the settlements.
Well, yes, there are. Look, I at this point have different thoughts on this, but apparently Amnesty International has created a free 90-minute course called Deconstructing Israel's Apartheid Against Palestinians. I would suggest that anybody who has questions about this, check that out. But yeah, this is not a question of whether or not it's an apartheid state. It's just a question of whether or not you agree with it existing. That's all there is to talk about. This is an apartheid state, and you might not like that. That might bother you. It might make you uncomfortable. You've been loyal to Israel, maybe. It might just stick in your craw. But you need to accept that, sort of like we accept things like evolution and that the earth is round. We need to just be on that. I mean, this is just where we are. Water is wet. Right. So Israel's an apartheid state. And I would urge you guys to check out that 90-minute free thing that they're having on Amnesty International to explain it further. Because, yeah, that's that.
Finally, tribes reach 590 million opioid settlement with J&J and distributors.
Yeah, this pleases me.
Money from the tentative deal would go towards addiction and treatment and would be overseen by Native American tribal leaders. So therein lies the rub. the ability for them to actually make their own decisions as far as how this needs to be done.
Well, right now, I mean, the pharmaceutical industry is enduring lawsuits left and right from all different states and municipalities for these overdoses that happened that were absolutely with knowledge. This was a completely malicious thing that happened. They knew exactly what they were doing and they did it on person. Again, shout out. If you haven't seen Dope Sick on Hulu, highly recommend.
Haven't seen it yet, but doesn't mean
highly recommend. Watch Dope Sick on Hulu. This was intentionally done to particular communities where they knew that people would be particularly susceptible to addiction. So they went into mining towns. They went very heavily into tribal territory, and they pushed opioids. And there have been so many deaths as a result of this. And they absolutely knew what they were doing. And they were preying on people like this. So this is a small settlement in the grand scheme of things. But I just kind of want to keep people present, like-minded, that this is still something that's lingering and going on, that these lawsuits are continuing.
And this is yet another reason why supporting Medicare for all, a universal healthcare system, makes all the sense in the world, because you need to take power away from these big pharmaceutical giants.
So let me say, the plaintiffs in this case are more than 400 tribes who say the opioid makers and distributors were responsible for the opioid crisis in their communities, and say they faced increased costs of healthcare, social services, childcare more as a result. The number of deaths from opioid overdoses has been rising, but it has disproportionately risen among Native Americans and Alaskans, which isn't surprising. That is generally how these things work. They disproportionately affect already vulnerable communities. So it's a small settlement at this point, but it's a good step in the right direction. And there's a whole bunch of lawsuits following. So I just want to, keep that out there, that this is still going on.
And for our final story of the night, one that is going to have a little bit of a twist to it.
Yes.
Banned. Books on race and sexuality are disappearing from Texas schools in record numbers. Florida is also trying to do the same crap. Facing pressure from parents and threats of criminal charges. See, this is the thing. This isn't the schools. This is the parents.
I don't think so, though. I don't think so. And I'm going to tell you why. Because
some districts have ignored policies meant to prevent censorship. Librarian and students are pushing back.
Okay, so I want everybody to look up a group called Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty is an organization of conservatives. It's funded by conservative groups. It's very hubbed here in Florida. It's big in Texas. It's all around the country. Ron DeSantis is a big supporter.
I'm sure.
And they are promoting this idea that it is a parent's liberty to educate their child as they see fit, and that these types of topics ought not be taught to their children, lest their white children feel bad about being white. And seriously, this is what this is about, okay? So these books are being censored based on a small group of people. It is not most people. It's just people that are loud, and vocal about it. But they are banning books having to do with anything involving race, LGBTQ, issues that make them feel uncomfortable, that they would rather their children not know about, which if you really wanted to do that, fine, go put your children in parochial school. And you can have your druthers as to what nonsense your children are indoctrinated with. But if your children are going to be exposed and live in the universe amongst the rest of us, there's certain basic things we just want people to be aware of. And, that's the kind of stuff that they're banning. And so I heard of a teenager in Pennsylvania, and she started at her high school a banned books club. And she went to the local indie bookstore and she set it up with somebody there. And they are now reading all of the books that have been banned from their school, from their county. And so what we are going to do, and this is coming soon, it has not been all worked out yet. That's why it's like coming soon. We are going to be having an online banned books club for teens and teens at heart. And we're going to be bringing in all the books, mostly the contemporary books. Like, we know they've banned Huck Finn. We know, but I'm talking more about the contemporary books.
Huck Finn is banned?
Oh, that gets banned all the time. That one, Catcher in the Rye.
I know Catcher in the Rye.
A lot of books, but it's all wrong. But I'm talking more about the contemporary books that they're really pushing against. And so I have tapped into a very good resource, a very good friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine, who is a librarian, like really a librarian, like library nerd, research nerd. And she actually helped set up a bunch of the teen programs for Broward County libraries. So I asked her if she would be interested in curating a list for us to use. And so we're going to set this up and work on that. And what we're going to do is we're going to work with a small indie bookstore, and we are going to fund for people to get the books and make sure that they get the books, that they can read the books that have been banned. So once we get a list and we're going to just want to say coming soon, I want to be doing a banned books club. And, it isn't a matter of how many people necessarily come on and do a book club. It's really about promoting books that have been banned and getting them into the hands of people, because I have this gut feeling that all the books that should be banned should actually be required reading. So that's that. I really don't.
I am trying to get this person put in timeout, but I guess it's not.
I don't even know why you bothered.
Sarah, you better stop or I'm going to block you.
And
So,
because then they'll just go off and complain how we block people that don't agree with us.
Oh yeah, no, we've been given that treatment before.
Yeah,
we don't understand people's pain,
yeah.
So we have to be yelled at and told how terrible we are, so that way we'll understand better. Sorry, it doesn't work that way.
No, it's not worth it. And the truth is that the comments help our algorithm. And
That is
I
true.
hate when you do that. It is so disgusting. Please don't do that.
All right, I stop.
Okay.
So on Monday, we are going to have our first official of the year candidate forum. It is going to be for the Lone Star State of Texas. We will have 4 candidates on, 2 for federal office, 2 for state office. And they, of course, are progressive, non-corporate candidates. So we will be speaking with the state House representatives. Will be, one is Lorenzo Sanchez, who I believe is running in District 70.
Nobody will know these things.
Chris Leal is running in District, I think, 114. These are both in North Texas. And our 2 federal candidates are going to be friend of the show, both friends of the show, Donna Imam, who is running in, I believe, federal congressional district 31, which is in Austin, and Jasmine Crockett, who is running, I forgot I think it's maybe 13.
I don't know. She's in the Metroplex.
She's by Dallas Fort Worth.
She's in the Metroplex for people who, that's what it is.
So that's going to be a very fun conversation. I will probably experiment again with a solo show, maybe. We'll see.
I think what we're going to do, I mean, I actually like the idea of, even if there were other people that lived around here that wanted to have a little show on our channel and were, had something interesting that they wanted to put out there. I just want this channel to be a resource.
Yeah.
So just have a resource and be putting out content that has any amount of useful information.
Like, especially on weeks where we don't want to have to force, like I said, it was just the perfect storm on Monday with, the potential guests having to dip out. And so it gave me an opportunity to do a solo. And that makes it easier, to try different formats and things like that.
I just think that could be a segment, like a bit, like it has, especially now that it has its own little pretty picture and everything. And you could have like any given show do like,
30 minutes
do whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think that so if other people out there have any ideas for like format stuff that they want to, do or contribute. And if somebody, oh, thank you.
How about,
love y'all.
How about faux chicken?
No, we don't. I don't eat meat, but if you're being nice, I appreciate the sentiment. If somehow you're mocking me, whatever,
No, that's a compliment.
I never know. I never know anymore.
Yes, Matt, the brick wall is.
I know, you guys. My house that I've moved into, the renovations have like taken over, and I haven't had a chance to put up our permanent backdrop. But we are going to have a permanent backdrop that doesn't move like the curtain.
I am not vegan, but I eat a lot of vegan food, and I highly recommend that.
We're kind of pescatarian.
Yeah, definitely. And listen, in terms of what you can do as an individual, reducing your carbon footprint, not eating meat does go a long way.
And I'm noticing people on our, like you're booking guests that I've never heard of, which is great, but I don't know like what so next Wednesday, I don't know who this is. I don't know who that is.
Sam Sachs is somebody you are absolutely going to love. He's friends with Mikey, and he is on Means TV, and he happens to also be a friend of our good friend Tom Hartman. Was a regular on his show on RT America. Really, really like him. You'll like him. And
candidate next week is Mariah Parker.
Mariah,
where is she?
She is a county commissioner, I believe in Georgia, but she just came out with this amazing hip hop, like 2-minute video about working class people.
That's cool.
You got to check it out. So we're going to have some dirtbag. Where have you been? Took you forever to get here.
Yeah, the wavy bricks. I know. Yeah. I do have a white set that I broke out for Festivus, the white bricks.
For the rest of us.
The Festivus for the rest of us. But we definitely can have a better backdrop. We're working on it.
Do we want to mention this? Do we even want to address it?
No.
No, okay.
We most certainly do not want to address
just
that.
Making sure.
Oh, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't know that.
No, we
news.
definitely do not want to address that.
That's awkward.
That's worse than that.
Okay. Sorry. Does anybody want to make an appearance?
Oh my God. Provide a link, please. A link. What are we
I
linking
haven't
to?
been here in a while, and I just wanted to come on
What
and
am I
say,
providing a link for?
I heard you're doing a really great event this weekend for Nina Turner, but that's not what's important. We're doing a really incredible event at Mar-a-Lago this weekend. That event, I don't do that. That's bad stuff. Totally bad for you.
It would be better if you did.
It may be, but I'm never doing it.
It would make you a lot more tolerable to the rest of us.
I couldn't possibly be more tolerable. I'm a wonderful person, tremendous person.
Nina won't run as an independent because she can't win that way because that doesn't work.
Well, I ran as an independent. I took over the Republican Party. I made it my own party. That's what an independent does. It was really great. And as you know, we are making America great again.
Again. We coined that here, by the way, sir. You're using it, but we coined it.
Well, as you know, the entire purpose of my business is to take great ideas from other people and package them into my own because they are really great ideas, tremendous ideas. And we're doing a wonderful fundraiser this weekend. Forget about your beauty little silly fundraiser. I'm donating everything. We're having a great time, a great spread.
We are. We're having a meet and greet for Nina Turner, guys.
That's totally not important.
It is important.
What's more important is our
viewers.
Our meet and greet is great. Our meet and greet is incredible.
We're having a meet and greet, guys, Sunday here, Wilton Manors for Nina Turner, and 1 to 3. It is a fundraiser. We do need people to donate. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. Anything. So if you are local,
I don't really want to hear about Nina Turner though. She's not me. She's not as important. I'm more important. Believe me.
If you guys are Nina Turner does not want my money.
I know, but no, believe me, Nina doesn't have anywhere near as much money as I do.
She doesn't want to have as much money as you do.
No, she totally does. Everybody does.
Everyone wants to be you.
Everybody wants to be me. And we're making America great again. So guys, though, seriously, but you keep putting this up. It's the wrong location. You can't put that up. We've changed the location. That's what I'm saying. Well, that's okay, but we could tell people how to get involved.
Yes, guys.
So you go to DonaldTrump.com, make a contribution there.
On our Facebook page. Did you do the Facebook invite on our Facebook page?
I don't know who you're talking to. You're not talking to me.
Go to our page and on Generational Change, guys, and check out our Facebook invite. It has the correct location. It is in Wilton Manors at a place called, I can never get this right, Georgie's Monkey Alibi Bar. I don't know. It's
totally
the weirdest
racist.
thing. Okay,
totally
it's
racist.
called Alibi. It was Alibi.
You're not supposed to say monkey. That's a bad word. Terrible word. Jen, you're not a good person. You really shouldn't talk like that. Believe me when I tell you, I would know. The name of the bar is
Georgie's Alibi Monkey Bar. And I don't know the order of the words. It's Georgie's.
It sounds like a really great.
Guys, it's on Wilton Drive.
Great.
It's from 1 to 3 on Sunday. And we'd love to have people come out. We are asking for a $50 donation for Nina. However, I
wash my butt with $50. That's terrible. That's not a lot of money.
Also, I did announce that Generational Change will be donating $200. And so we actually can have a couple of people join us. So if you are local and you would like to go to a meet and greet with Nina, and you would like to come with us, you could be our guest. So reach out to us. What's our email?
I wash my face with $200 and I wipe my nose with $200. So you're moving on up, Jen. That's impressive. The meet and greet is going to be at the Monkey Bar. Monkey bars. You ever climb the monkey bar?
It's more called Alibi, but
you climb the monkey bars. If you can do it, it's great exercise. It's really great. And you're going to have a wonderful time at this event. Nina's going to be there. Jen's going to be there. A bunch of really incredible, important people will be there.
But you know what,
and
guys, if you're local, yes, it's a gay club. It's in Wilton Manors.
That's totally not my type of club. I'm a very happy person, but not that happy. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.
Guys, so in all seriousness, it is in Wilton Manors. And it's, see, now I think it is Declan. But Declan, you're really being very mean if that's you. Like, you're being very, very mean. But so, yeah, and it's going to be really fun. We do have the room in the back. of this place. And there is also an outdoor area, patio area, like if people wanted to come and like say hi, whatever, but they didn't want to really be inside for any amount of time.
I just want everybody to know that this event that Nina and Jen are having on Sunday is a very big deal.
Are you coming?
I'm not saying whether I'm coming or not. All I'm saying is that you really should attend.
It's the first time you've ever mentioned me, I think.
Well, I like you, Jen. You're okay. So, but Nina, she's a good friend. She's a really, really good friend, kind of like Joe, but she's a good friend. And so you're going to, I just don't dabble in that. But everybody should be able to do it if they want. I saw Donald was here and he said that he doesn't.
Donald doesn't dabble in the cannabis
well,
either.
That's too bad. He doesn't know what he doesn't understand what he's missing.
He could use it.
So I really think that a lot of people should understand the importance of supporting Nina. It really does make a difference. She can absolutely win this race. And there's no dark money going into that race.
No.
I don't like what Congresswoman Brown had to say.
No,
don't talk like that about Nina.
No, it's just, you know what? It's just when all you have to talk about is against somebody else, then you have nothing to bring to the table. And that's something that people need to recognize. If all you can do is sit there and make up crap about your opponent, your challenger, then you're obviously not doing anything worthy of that seat yourself, or you would have something else to talk about.
Well, look, you know, when I ran for president twice, they said a lot of things about me that wasn't true. And unfortunately, that had a lot to do with why we lost. But of course, we are going to fight back against this fake news because Nina's the best of us. She's a really good person, and we really want to help her out. So
you're spreading misinformation, Declan, if that's you, because that's just not true.
So remember, it is the, what is it again, Jen? The what? Monkey bar?
Oh my God. It's like Georgie's Alibi Monkey Bar.
And that is
it's on Wilton Drive. It's right smack dab in the middle of Wilton Manors. But guys, I believe that there's an invitation on our website. Is that correct? Do you know if there's an invitation on our website or on a Facebook page?
Well, it's on the Facebook page.
Okay.
I set it up, and of course, maybe we could put something on the website.
We'll keep promoting, guys. Yeah, we should definitely put something on the website. We would have to look into that.
No, absolutely. And of course, any support that you can give to Nina is a support on my behalf.
Did you hear about my book club? Did you see that we're going to be having a book club for banned books for teenagers?
Well, look, I mean, people should be able to read what they want to read. I mean, you know, when I was a young man, many years ago, you know, there were books that were banned: Flowers for Algernon, Catcher in the Rye.
Very incendiary stuff.
Yes, lots of very controversial stuff.
I mean, they're and Florida and Texas are the two worst states apparently with these moms for liberty. Moms for liberty. I'm having like people that are my generation. It's like Tipper Gore and the PMRC all over again. Like, we cannot have this nonsense. We cannot have this nonsense. So I'm going to make Moms for Liberty be like, I'm going to consistently be taught like this is now, I'm like on a mission against that organization.
Well, of course, if you want to support Nina, even if you can't attend the event, that would also be much appreciated. That will make all the difference. Please go and contribute. Thank you for having me on, John.
Yeah, they're on my total hit list right now. Like, that is I am now like going to make it my mission to fuck with that group. Sorry. It's just,
I always say the most dangerous racist in society is not the crazy Confederate flag waving, you know, pickup truck driving guy. It's the comfortable suburbanite housewife in a gated community. They are. Because they make the rules.
It's unfortunate. And you know what, though? What is inspiring to me is the fact that there's now that the phrase Karen is a thing, it's almost like a recognition of that person of whom you speak, of that sort of stereotype of that person. And the fact that that's being acknowledged as something that's an insult or unacceptable in general, I think is a step in the right direction as to what you like, because what you're talking about is essentially true. Yeah. That those are the people that are causing a lot of the problems that we have, and doing so in the name of, you know, liberty for their children. They want the liberty to properly brainwash their children against things like, you know, science and stuff. But yeah, they actually, one of the books that was on the hit list to be banned down here in Florida, and I find this particularly infuriating, is a book called I Am Jazz. And for anybody who doesn't know who Jazz is, and for the life of me, I cannot remember her last name. She is a girl. She is a transgender woman now. I think I don't know if she's a teenager or she's older now, but she's from Weston. And so she's a local person here. And when she was little in elementary school, she's about to say, oh no, she's the same age as Reese. So like, she's like 20. Like now. So when Reese was little, she had this book. It's a children's book, a picture book about her in elementary school and how she, you know, what that feels like to be transgender, and in a way that was completely age appropriately written. And I bought it for Reese, and I still have that book and I love it. And the fact that they're making a deal of it, it's sort of like the thing with the gay penguins. Like that book with the gay, there's this child's book, and there's like a couple that are a couple and they're penguins and they're both males. And this is like a source of concern. People, if this is what is concerning to you, you're really not seeing what's going on here. But I can't have this. Book banning is a huge deal for me.
So what's one of the ways that they can help us?
Yes, guys, please, if you can, please be patrons. We are so deplatformed basically on Google, and the algorithm is so working against us that even though subscribing is awesome and it helps, please do that. But if you guys have any interest in what we spend our money on, I'd like to say we're a mutual fund for service. Our mission is transforming politics into
Good
service.
investment.
Yeah. So when you support us, we're not earning income from this. All we do with that money is we put it towards nonprofit or non-corporate candidates that are trying to move in the right direction in terms of getting money out of the system. And we put it towards organizations or issues that are important. And one of the things locally we recently did was a community garden. So like, it's just different
And
things.
it looks amazing.
Yeah, it does look amazing. Hallandale High School and the
Hoping
woman
to expand it further.
Yeah,
more schools.
Lucy Spence. What's her name? Spence. I think it's Spence. I don't know the woman at the school. She's amazing, and she's facilitating this garden at this high school, and it's a beautiful thing. And so when you give to us, we do homeless bags. I keep those in the car. I'm always giving away homeless hygiene bags.
Thank you, Joe.
So just whatever you got, like when you support us, it's only going towards service things and promoting non-corporate candidates. That's what we do. So
yeah,
I think that's a really good point, but yet
it helps.
It does. It helps the algorithm.
Just make sure you smash that like button. Remember, you can become a patron for as low as $5 a month. You can become one for $10 or even $25 a month. We do have some giveaways still. We have our jersey. We've got, they
see now I know it's Declan.
Yeah.
Declan. And you know what's so funny? Now that I know it's you, but I got to tell you, we're really mean tonight. You were really like kind of being really mean tonight.
He was hiding, but the
truth is we don't even know that his name's really Declan.
Well, you're such a racist, or no, not racist, a sexist Declan, because you were hiding behind a woman, making it seem like a woman was really nasty. Why don't you just own it, buddy?
Yeah, I think it's Declan now. The fact once he says, and he gave it away once he says bend the knee, then I know it's him.
Yeah, that's how he gives it away. Declan,
but you were really mean tonight, I got to say. It's not cool, but it does help. And the reason, see, every time he says that, in a way, it helps them because it's helping us, all those comments, and he knows it. So, yeah, but you were mean tonight, I got to say. I wasn't very pleased with that.
We hope you guys enjoyed. Obviously, if you can, like you said, patreon.com/generational
And if you're not subscribed, subscribe. It's free.
Yeah. Subscribing, spread the word. It obviously helps a lot. We definitely had some great conversations tonight. Mark Judson, who's still here. We really appreciate you coming on. Of course, Joe Sanberg, amazing conversation. And obviously, we're going to have the candidate roundtable on Monday.
Yes, and I also want to put out something else that is kind of interesting that we have lurking in the future. Okay.
What, 420?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're gonna do. Well, we're gonna do
much like we did a Festivus live stream. We're gonna do a 420 live stream.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, we're gonna do a 420 party.
Hopefully we'll have like a cause to raise money for us.
Did you look? Does it fall on a Wednesday? Is that
it does?
It does. Okay. So it's perfect. It falls on a Wednesday. But what I'm trying to accomplish with who we can get to come on will be interesting. But I look very much forward to a 420.
We're trying
for Willie Nelson. Story time. We'll bring out stoned history.
We'll bring back George Carlin from the dead if we can. We'll try as we might.
No, for me, the dream would be Willie Nelson.
That's what I was just going to say. Willie and Snoop.
Snoop Dogg. But what Snoop said that Willie outsmoked him, then you got to go with the GOAT. You got to go with the GOAT, and that's Willie. And,
I'll find some favorites around to see
Willie.
If that happen.
Willie got Woody to get, to fall off the wagon again.
Well, what we're going to do, what we're going to do? What we should do is we should do the 420 event.
I don't think we could get Willie Nelson.
Probably not. That'd be hard. But I think the 420 event should be centered around legalizing cannabis with home grow in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Bringing as much attention to that as we can, making it a fundraiser for the cause if we can.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we can do, but that's really what I think we
yeah,
should
and
center it
guys,
on.
you know, and I, you know, this is definitely, I'm having one of my stone moments where I can't remember exactly the nature of it, but Kyle did a bit about this piece that came out about men that are still incarcerated for nonviolent marijuana offenses in places where marijuana is now legal and people are profiting off of it. So you've got, on one hand, you've got people profiting off of marijuana in California, as well they should. That doesn't bother me. But the fact that people are incarcerated for the same thing is, it's just a violation of everything that we can possibly know to be true about justice. Like, it's just completely not okay. So that's something that's very important. So yeah, we will have some conversations about that because it's very important to me. But I actually believe in decriminalizing all drugs because I don't think drugs is a criminal matter. I think drugs is a health issue. And, you know,
We have to end the for-profit prison complex.
yeah. Yeah.
That's
Once you lose the profit motive of incarceration, I do think that's really a huge shift in how things would be, because if there's no profit motive, it's not going to be as much of a thing, which I think, I'd love to get, I'd love to get Tommy Chong, because he actually did a lot of time for marijuana. You know, I think about people that did that. And for someone like me, it's like when you look at people that have been leading your movement back in the day when it was harder, whatever your movement is, civil rights movement, LGBT, like, to me, I look at people like Tommy Chong as some of the original people that have pushed to get us to where we are with cannabis legalization. So like, I have a lot of respect for people, and especially people that serve time for marijuana.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for him.
It should absolutely be legal. There is no reason that it shouldn't be, other than the fact that big pharma and big alcohol don't want it.
Yeah.
So we have to do what we can. This is a colossal issue to focus on. Mark Judson coming in hot. Yes, war as well. And for a bong, we agree.
Oh, you know who I would love to get on, actually, in all reasonableness for 420? If we could get Jim Belushi, who started following us and is running a cannabis farm in Oregon,
work on that
an organic cannabis farm. And by the way, is going to be launching cannabis infused gourmet ice cream pints, and it will be available in places obviously that have legalized cannabis, which won't be here. But
you should also try to get Ben and Jerry.
Oh, I'd love to get. Well, I mean, we're talking cannabis. You know, it's like,
but
cannabis
they're
is
huge advocates for it. So, you know, we should definitely try to see who
we'll
we
have
can
an
get.
interesting array of people.
But now we know,
get a comedian.
But now we know exactly what it's going to be for. It's going to be for the ballot initiative legalizing cannabis with home grow. That is what it's going to be about. So hopefully you guys can get behind that. We'll start we'll start spreading the word. We'll start figuring out what the best format's going to be. It's probably going to be something similar to the Festivus and the Julian Assange event. So that's what it's going to come down to. We appreciate you guys. And obviously we did have a little bit of a better showing tonight in terms of our audience.
It sounds like a problem. I'm worried about you.
Who
What
cares?
sounds like a problem? No, because now I think it's Declan, and maybe he actually cares.
Well,
can't you just play nice? Why can't people just be nice?
Hopefully we got
Am
some
I
patrons.
able to function without getting high?
Stop.
Yes, I can actually. It's really interesting.
Okay, I want to
do
end the show.
Perfectly,
I don't want to do
I
this
do
anymore.
perfectly well. And what's interesting is, and I really do, if I travel, if I go somewhere, like I went to Costa Rica for a while, I was in Portugal for a while, I didn't travel with weed on me, and I was fine. Like it's not, I function just fine.
Okay, don't interact with the trolls. Thank you very much, everybody. Hit the like button, subscribe, share, become a patron if you can, and we will see you. We'll see you on Monday. Have a good night.